And good morning, my beautiful America. Welcome back to the All American Book Club. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm probably on my third cup of coffee with a little Dr. Ashley protein in here. And I'm so excited to bring over to the show for the first time, The Eyes of River. And I'm holding up for those who are watching on pray.com and also the YouTube channel, The Eyes of River. What a beautiful cover. New from novelist, speaker, teacher Cindy K. Sproles, celebrating the heritage of the Appalachian Mountains. She's a best-selling, award-winning author of several novels, and she's new to this show. So please help me welcome to the show, Cindy K. Sproles. Thank you so much for being here.
Well, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Can you are you up to the same amount of coffee I am this morning, or are you
I'm good.
you guys? Well, it's been a joy to talk to you off camera, and I'm so glad to have you now recorded and on camera. And I'm going to hold up the book again. I really have enjoyed this book, and you and I were talking about Appalachia and just how it's been a niche genre that you and other authors have brought back to the table for those to really engage and understand this part of the country. So let's talk about your personal background. You live in this part of the country, and it has inspired you to write many of award-winning novels. So let's talk about you.
Okay. Well, yeah, I'm an East Tennessean, so I've been born and raised here in the foothills of the Appalachian Mountains. So, and my mother is one of seven in her family. My grandmother was a good mountain girl. So, and our family, I don't know if you know the Foxfire books or not, but a few
No, I
years
do not.
back, several years back, they had Foxfire books, and those are all books that document all of the things that happen in the Appalachian Mountain culture, traditions,
Oh.
all the stuff they do. And my mom's family is in Foxfire 3 making apple butter. So, so yeah, I was raised in these mountains, and I really appreciate the heritage here.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yes.
and I just don't want that to be forgotten.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's talk about the heritage first, because you see it in this book, and I know that you've written it in other books, but let's talk about the heritage that you see that you don't want forgotten. So we see this new generation. We were talking about this before as well. We see this new generation very much focused on this and not necessarily on this. And so, how do we impact a new generation to know the history of Appalachia, to know, just the heritage and the foundation? Because there's faith, there's a community, there's the power of eating together at the table. You just talked about apple butter, and my mother-in-law came from the north, but she educated herself on Southern cuisine. So there's nothing like that cuisine. There's nothing like that food, that hearty food that comes from that part of the country.
Good
So
old
let's
comfort food.
yeah, so let's talk about that. What are some of those key components that you want to preserve in our heritage, but you also talk about in the book?
Well, I think outside of, the obvious things like tradition and,
Mm,
and how this part of the country actually played a great part in moving west, moving
mm,
things west. Uh,
yeah.
it's just those traditions and family. I mean, the family tradition in the mountains. It was because you lived so far away from other people that your family was who you depended on and who you
Yeah.
needed. And so that loyalty
Yeah.
there, and also too that community. You talked about community. Even
Mhm.
though there was quite a distance between people, if you needed something, that community was available to you. People
Mhm.
were there to help you do what needed to be done. So if you needed a barn put together, your neighbors
Yep.
would help you put it together. So, those traditions, that community, that kind of thing. I mean, my grandchildren don't understand what it is to can green beans.
I learned how to do that when I was a kid.
So, for them to understand that green beans can come somewhere other than a tin can, you know,
Yeah.
is for them to be able to have the opportunity to break the beans, shuck corn,
Yep.
you know,
Yep.
do all those kinds of things. those are traditions, that centered around family.
Mhm.
So, like I said, my mom was one of seven, and when all seven kids helped my grandmother plant a garden,
Mhm.
and all our entire family, helped harvest the garden. One weekend we did corn, the next weekend
Yeah.
we did green beans, the next weekend we did tomatoes, and then in the fall we made apple butter. So, but it brought together family.
Yes. Yes.
And so each kid had their thing to do. When it came to canning or whatever, I shucked more corn and cut more tobacco than I cared everything.
You
And
sound like my
the
husband with
consequences
tobacco.
of those tobacco leaves, hacking and cutting on your skin.
Wait a second. When you say tobacco, my husband calls it bacca.
Back.
Right? Right? That's the correct term, isn't it?
Yeah. So
So
yeah. So,
let's talk about something really quickly in the community aspect, which I, being here in Eastern North Carolina, my husband is from here. So I've seen a difference in community that from where I came from in the North, growing up in the North, working in the North, living down here, transitioning down here. And something I noticed during all the hurricanes, because obviously this part of the country gets hit very hard with hurricanes. So it was our first year of marriage, and Florence, no, our second year of marriage, Florence hit Eastern North Carolina. And I saw something in community. People built back together, they came back together. They had nothing but the Lord, faith, and the community to depend on one another. Who needs a loaf of bread? I'm going to go to the store and see what they got, that kind of aspect. But Helene, like we just talked about before you hopped on, is another testament to what true community really is.
yeah.
And most around this country couldn't even fathom that because they hadn't lived through it.
Right. Yeah. I can tell you a little quick story.
Yeah.
After Helene hit, which we say from where I live, we were 30 minutes or 30 miles away from the true devastation when it came across the mountain. And but our community still suffered,
Yeah.
a lot of flooding, a lot of things that happened here. But I was in the airport in Orlando after a conference in October. Helene hit in September.
Mhm.
And I had a lady, I had on a shirt that said Appalachian. I usually wear it when I go to a conference so people can understand me. It's having to say Appalachian. But anyway, I had that on in the airport, and it generated conversation with a lady who was from Miami. And
Uh-huh.
we were chatting a little bit, and Helene came up, and I told her where I was from, and she went, "Oh yeah, I saw that on the news." And she said, "Well, can I ask a question?" And she was not being facetious. She wasn't being mean. She
Sure.
said, because she was from Miami. I hate to say they're used to this kind of thing, but they kind of
Right.
are.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
she said, "Couldn't you all have prepared?"
Uh,
And I said, "Let me ask you a question." And she said, "Yeah."
sure.
I said, "In Miami, do you prepare for snow?"
Yeah.
And she said, "Well, it doesn't snow in Miami." And I went, "Bingo."
Right.
We
Right.
don't get hurricanes in the mountains,
That's
so
true. That's
no, we
true.
couldn't prepare.
Right.
So when it hit. And, we had 18 inches of rain before Helene came
Right.
through.
And that was the issue because of the
Yeah,
land, the
before Helene came
mudslides.
through, I emptied 18 inches of rain out of my chicken coop thing that holds water. So, we had rain upon more rain. And
Yeah.
then Helene
Yeah.
and the flood. And so it was just devastating. And quite honestly, we still are buried. We have areas who are still buried underneath all this
Yes.
because we're not correct. But you talk about community and why
Right.
people come together, because it's funny. The people in the mountains don't wait for somebody to come help them. They just start doing it. So it was
Right.
amazing to me that I could see online where people were bringing flatbed
Right.
trucks, lining
Right.
it side by side to
Yeah.
make a bridge, so that you could drive across. So it's like, well, we're not going to wait on somebody to come help us. If we're going to do this, we're going to have to do
Right.
it on our own. And so,
Right.
you have to, there's something to be said about the resilience of the mountain people and their determination to come back. Now, I mean, things were devastated, and we still have, like I said, we still have people who are
Mhm.
without a home. But
Right.
uh, but for the most part, people are there to help one
Yes. Yes. So let's do this. I want to pivot over to your book. I mean, I know you and I could talk about cooking and family and community and all that all day. And I can't wait to have you back to do more of that. But let's talk about your brand new book that just came out, The Eyes of River. Like I said, I am about halfway through. It is a phenomenal book. I try and get 7 books done a week, and I was pushing to get this one done. But I also just want to say to my audience, I love this book and I want to enjoy it. I don't want to just push it just to say I've read it. It is a really great read. You've done an amazing work on your characters, the character development. And I have to be honest with you, I can't stand this father. I am ready to, do what? I'm not going to sit on live recording, but
There's always one we have to kill off somewhere along the line.
character development in this, and the imagery of at the train station. So let's walk through the opening of the book of what people will hear when they meet Lizzy, Alton, and the River, the brother. Kind of walk us through that whole train scene.
Right. So I like to be able to put some true aspect of history in all of my books. And so when I ran across the fact that you could actually mail your child through the US mail, it took a while for me to believe that, but actually, yeah, you could. You could mail your 23 cents, I think it cost you
Yes,
child.
yes,
And
yeah,
and so like you said, the father is not a good man. He's a brutal person, and Lizzy is doing her best to protect River. The book is called The Eyes of River because this child has those glassy green eyes that just are convicting. And at every turn, that's what keeps coming back to her, these haunting eyes, to try to help her stay straight. Uh,
yeah,
and so she's got to save her brother.
yeah.
And she puts the postage on him and puts him on the train, and they take him away on the train. She's sending him to Knoxville to try to a friend of her mother's to try to make sure that he's safe. I I can't imagine putting my child on a train. But the other side of that is, back in that time frame, people knew their mail carriers personally, and because they were the only person, they did everything in the town, the
Right.
everything. So it wasn't like they were handing their child over to a stranger. Uh,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
they traveled along with the child and hand delivered that child, because they were the post person. So
Yeah.
it wasn't like you were just handing your child over to a stranger. But
Mhm.
still, even at that, imagine putting a 3-year-old on the train and saying,
Yeah.
"Okay, see you later." um,
Well, that brings
it'd
up
be
the
hard.
that brings up the fact that I've had this conversation with some other authors. Let me highlight this really quickly before we continue on. But back during that time period, a lot of children were either up for adoption in well, not even foster care, but they were just in these homes and were basically left. And there was, even then, where it's not as modernized, but that whole trafficking component was big then, because there was a poor community. There was abuse, like you just, well, we're going to highlight. There was abuse and death and all of those kinds of things. So to give the child up for a safer life didn't always necessarily happen.
Right. Yeah. I mean, if you've read any of the stories about the orphan train,
Right.
which were
Yes.
children that were put on board a train and sent out west, and people would just pick them out and say, "Oh, we need help on the farm."
Mm-hmm.
Some of them ended up in loving homes, and some of them didn't. And so that's what she's afraid has happened to her brother because he never makes it uh, to Knoxville. But yeah, there was a lot of scary things, and then this story also encompasses that thing about the child trafficking,
Mm-hmm.
and a woman in Tennessee in the 50s. Now I shoved it back in time a little bit, but in the 50s, she actually was taking babies from the hospital and telling their parents, oh, your baby died. And then she was selling them.
Yes.
She had a children's home of all things,
Yes.
an orphanage.
Yes. I remember hearing about that.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so how can you justify that in any way? So this character, Lizzy, that's one of the things that she's horrified of is that, River doesn't make it to Knoxville. And
Right.
oh no, what have I done? Not only have I sent my brother away, but has somebody picked him up to take him, to be trafficked. So
Yes.
they didn't use that word back then.
No, they didn't. No, they
It's
didn't.
just stole.
Yeah.
Stole my baby.
And then the other aspect to this story, there's another story that's constantly lurking is Lizzy is being accused of double murder
Yeah.
by her, do we call him her father, her stepfather, or
It's
what?
her stepfather. And
Okay.
yes, yeah.
Yeah. So
So,
that is a constant thread throughout the story,
yeah.
where, and at the beginning, it does open up with the fact that her mother has died in her arms
At
from
the her
at the
father.
hand of her father.
Yeah.
So, and then there's also this whole abuse lingering in this whole scenario. And so it opens up with a huge drama scenes. You just have one after another. And then it's the journey of her and her friend Alton. And you do add a little bit of romance there, I noticed.
Yeah. I like to have a little romance in there, but the story is not a romance,
Right. Right.
But there has to be, I think in a hard story, which I write those hard Appalachian stories, there has to be an opportunity for the reader to take a breath,
Right.
because I do pack things in.
Yes, you do. Yes, you do. Yeah.
And so there has to be something that allows the reader to go,
Yeah.
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 So I can put those little romantic interlude type things in there,
Yeah.
or humor to kind of give that opportunity for the reader to take a breath. But then I like it. It also helps to make the story end better, I think.
Mhm. Well, and you also um, link in the good book, the Bible. You also talk about scripture and how Lizzy's mom was a woman of faith and how Lizzy always looked to that. But you can see Lizzy's transitioning to want to believe, to start praying, to helping understand all of these tragedies and all of these things that are happening to her is pointing her to faith.
Right, right. And see that's where you and I were talking. I like to use life lessons
Yes.
rather than those come to Jesus minutes with you, because I really think that's how God teaches us better is through our life
Yes.
lessons, rather than beating us over the head. And
What,
so
what was that quote? What was that quote?
that that,
Be,
that God
be,
uses life lessons to teach us rather than beating us over the head.
oh, I thought you said something else. I was like, it has to be another Southern quote that I don't know
Beating
yet.
us over the head with that scripture. But no, I like to be able to have people learn their way through faith, because I think that's truth. That is how our lives happen. And I think readers connect better when they are able to say, oh yeah, I kind of get how that's happening. I relate to that in some form. And we all struggle from time to time in our faith
Oh,
walk,
absolutely.
and maybe not to the extent that Lizzy does, but when we kind of keep hitting people in the face with God, that's not how we can reach them. We
Exactly.
reach them through people seeing how God works in our lives, how we come out on the other side when
Yeah.
things are bad. And,
Yeah.
so when something bad happens to us and people look at us and say, oh, well, how come they came through that like that? Why are they not angry? Why are they not, well, we have faith, which is
Right.
what makes a difference. And so hopefully it makes them want what we have.
Yes.
Uh,
Amen.
and look at it like that. But I like to use those life lessons to teach that.
Yes.
Like I said, I think it just rings more true and it brings in a better connection with the reader.
Oh, absolutely. We have about 9 seconds left, but no pressure. Where can my audience hang out with you, get to know you more, sign up, buy the book, all the above?
You can get the book at any retailer, online especially. But my website is www.cindysproles, SPROLES.com. And you can catch me there anytime.
Well, Cindy, it's an honor to know you. I love your work. I can't wait to have you come back. I can't wait for the exciting new adventures. And as we are headed into the Christmas season, which I see is just like tomorrow, I'd like to invite you to come back and join all of the authors as we gather to celebrate tradition, family, and promote all of your fun books.
Thank you. I'd love to.
Absolutely.